Welcome to our second Disney class of today, Pool Party with Donald. For this class, I again pulled inspiration from papers in my scrapbooking stash. We'll create some fun borders and bring a flattened printed image to life. And another great way to find inspiration for your Disney scrapbooking is Disney itself. We all know how uber talented, creative geniuses they have on staff. They design everything from t-shirts to signage, and then everything in between. So oftentimes we take photos of such things, but do you really remember to go back and use them for your inspiration? If you're taking photos on your cell phone, I suggest creating a file and moving all of your inspiration photos to that file. If you're taking them with an actual camera or storing them on your computer, create that special folder there. Then when you go to scrap your Disney photos, you don't have that endless scroll through your cell phone trying to remember what that sign looked like. Take photos of anything that inspires you. For example, check out this sign I noticed while we were at the Epcot Food and Wine Festival. I loved the color blocking and the color scheme, so I snapped a photo and then turned it into this design. Color blocking isn't normally my style, so I love that this signage gave me a brand new perspective. Secondly, check out this adorable t-shirt that I saw in the gift shop. It's no secret how much I love rainbows and how genius to add a character silhouette inside the rainbow. This t-shirt became this design. Now, don't think that it always comes together that easy. Why I absolutely love the final design, it did take me several steps to get there. So when I have a design that's not quite coming together, I snap a photo. Then without a lot of thought, I change something, I move it, or I add something, and then snap another photo. And then I keep doing this process over and over again, say 5 or 6 times. Looking at the design from a new perspective like your cell phone can really help. It can show you what worked and what didn't, and looking at the overhead view of it, you might realize that it's way better than you thought that it is. Or of course, you can just purchase our pre-designed kits and then you're all ready to go. All right, with that, let's get started on our Donald pool party. Okay, let's get started on the left side of our Donald spread here. Isn't this completely adorable? It makes me want to go on a Disney cruise again. I absolutely think that's one of my favorite vacations in the world, and the Aqueduct, of course, always makes me think of a Disney cruise. For this one, I'll show you my inspiration, but I also wanted to do something just a little different with our characters. So typically with our Disney characters, I use our Quick Quotes Powder Puff inks to give them some highlights and add some little special touches to each of those little pieces. But this time, I'm going to show you how to do that with Nuvo glitter markers. So if you notice in your instructions, you don't need any Quick Quotes Powder Puff inks. All you need is the Nuvo glitter markers for this one. So we're going to start, and then I'll show you the inspiration as we go along. So if you haven't done so, we're going to pull out that 12 by 12 bubble sheet from Echo Park there and go ahead and snap off that barcode strip. So that way we're ready to go with our 12 by 12 paper. And doesn't it just by his expression that he's holding his nose, jumping it in, doesn't the bubbles give you a feeling that he just jumped right into that water and all of the little air bubbles are coming up? Incredibly cute. All right, for the next thing here, we have this 6 by 12 piece of light blue paper. We do need to cut it down a little bit. So right now it's 6 by 12. We actually need to cut that down. It needs to be 6 by 11 and a half. So again, you have your instructions, but we need this piece to be 6 by 11 and a half. So I'm going to use my trimmer here and cut that down to 11 and a half. Our fish scales here. Isn't that other side fun as well? All right. When we go to adhere this, we want just a tiny bit of a border of our background showing here. And I have it so that my scales, that little scalloped edge, the scallops are pointing down. Doesn't really matter to me which way you want to do it, but just keep in mind, however you do it on this side, we want to mimic it on the other side. So if you have your scales or your scallops pointing upwards, just make sure you do that again so that they coordinate from left to right page. All right, so for the next piece here, I'm going to show you this really cute Disney pattern paper that I found. And it's just filled with very fun Disney borders. Couldn't you like easily cut this apart and you could use it on several different pages? But I think of how can we take this flat design and really make it dimensional? So wouldn't it be so fun if you recreated like this strip here, but cut out a bunch of Mickey heads so that it had, and you could use pop dots on some of them, use some of them flat, do some embossed dot, do some with the glimmer collection. And again, look how easy this would be. It's just stars and M-I-C-K-E-Y. How easy that would be to recreate and do that your own using a die cutting machine and your paper. And while this is adorable, I really love the idea of adding the extra dimension on the pages. But you could probably quickly see here which one I took for my inspiration, and that was the star border here. I love how it used the colors from our pattern papers, but then it allows me to bring in some additional colors as well. Now, you know me, I don't always want to make it like too predictable or too easy. So you'll notice with the strip that you have, we actually did the reverse of our stars. So instead of giving you the light blue stars, the red star, we're actually going to layer our border so that you see the stars through the open areas of the underneath. So we're going to recreate this here, but that was my total inspiration for this particular border on the page. And if you notice, we have totally scrap lifted it. So this one would be super easy, even if you don't have a die cutting machine. If you just have a star punch, you could punch all these different sizes of stars and so easily be able to recreate this one on your own. All right, so for now, I'm going to set that aside and we're going to go ahead and put our border strips together. All right, when you go to adhere these layers together, it does matter which order that you're going because we want to be able to see the stars in between. So I'm going to lay it vertical just to make sure that you can see it in the camera there. And then after our yellow layer, the next one we want to do is light blue. So the yellow glimmer is our base, and then we have our light blue layer. So I'm going to run my adhesive on the back of our light blue. And then we are going to adhere that in the center there of our yellow border strip. So you can start to see how this will come together, how now in those openings we can see the yellow stars. For the layer after the light blue, the next one we want to do is the red. So the yellow, the light blue, and then the red. Now I'm going to use my liquid adhesive on this one. Since we're getting a little more tight with our surface area. So I'm going to come in and add just little dots of adhesive. Now again, it matters which way it goes. So see how we have the cutouts here? Those should mimic the cutouts of your light blue. So make sure that you're constantly thinking about the layer that you're putting on top of. And then you should see where the yellow stars have still been cut out, but now you can see that light blue layer as well. Think of the challenge it was, though, to recreate this and to think of which layers had to have the cutouts, which had to have openings and solid surfaces. I love that little bit of challenge. So lucky for you, I love that challenge and it was all already thought out for you. All right, so after our red layer here, now we have our green layer. And again, we're going to make sure that we have it lined up so that it's in the correct direction. I'm going to add just a little bit of adhesive in that open surface area. Just like so, and then we're going to add the green on top of the red. So now we can see our yellow stars, our blue stars, and our red stars. Okay, 2 more layers to go. So the next after the green is going to be the white. And again, make sure we have it in the correct direction. Add just a little bit of adhesive in that open area. And we're going to add that white layer on top of the green. And then our final layer here. So the very top layer will be that navy blue. You can see our surface area is getting smaller and smaller so that we can see all those colors underneath. And then we're going to add that blue layer there on top. So there you go, our handmade star border. Isn't it incredible? That's my favorite thing of this whole design is I absolutely love this star border. I love the dimension of it. I love how we have kind of taken a flat concept and really put a different twist on it. So don't be surprised if you see this exact border used over again. You could change the colors, use it for 4th of July. We could use it for Christmas. There's so many possibilities that we can do with this border. All right, so now that we have it all complete, we're going to go ahead and adhere it to the page. So when you go to adhere it, you'll notice that you will overlap the top of our light blue pattern paper just a little bit, 1/4 of an inch or so. Run my adhesive there. And then go ahead and add my border strip. It is the exact same width here as our light blue paper, so they should match up perfectly. All right, so now that we have everything together for our star border, we're going to go ahead and put the little embellishments in here. So in your bag of goodies, you have a set of 3 enamel dots. Now, yours could be a different size than the sample, but all 3 should be white. And just for a little extra fun, I'm going to go ahead and stick a white enamel dot in the center of these 3 larger light blue stars. And I did that just because I like how it mimics the bubbles on the back of the pattern paper. It's all about the little touches, right? All right, so now that we have all of that border all complete, all here down, ready to go, now we're going to go put together the rest of our die cuts. So if you'll notice at the top of the page here, we have our Donald Duck, and my inspiration for our Donald Duck was this pattern paper here. So if you look at the paper, you can see again the inspiration. See how they have taken the two kind of scalloped borders here and cut them out. How we have, how they have drawn one in white and one in dark blue, and they've done that twice for that double scalloped border. And then how they have our Donald Duck with that circle life jacket there. And I have totally taken this exact concept and recreated it in paper. Now, I understand that, to do Donald Duck holding his nose going down, I am a graphic artist by trade. So this is a personal design that I have created and then made the SVG so that we have that file. So you can, if you're in Design Space, just do a search for Donald and makeshift any Donald character that they have already in there. So it wouldn't have to be exact, because if you look at my Donald and the Donald here, they're not the exact same position. We have obviously him as like coming through that circle. So you could cut him off at the waist. So, it's our little take, a little twist on our inspiration. Don't get caught up that it has to be exact. We need to allow ourselves the flexibility to be able to recreate but not expect perfection. So that was my fun way of recreating and really bringing dimension to our flat printed paper. Now, say that you don't have a die cutting machine or aren't necessarily as comfortable using the die cutting machine. If you do have one, we could take this exact paper and then just add on top of it. So you could use punches or hand cut, and we could cut out stars. Maybe we could cut out a little bow and then adhere those with a pop dot right on top of those pieces. You could buy 2 sheets of the exact same paper. You could cut out just his beak from one of the pages, cut out the stars, and then use the 3D foam to adhere them on top of this character. So then he's not flat. He's still dimensional, still coming to life. And that's kind of an easier way to do the twist on bringing dimension to our flat character than totally recreating it on a die cutting system. I think there's just so many possibilities using designs that graphic designers have already come up with. So I always keep a box of pattern papers that I find inspirational. I encourage you to do the same thing. All right, so we have those 2 scalloped borders. And we're going to go ahead and adhere those layers together. We're going to just kind of slightly offset them. So if you look when I put them together, they are identical in size. So when we adhere them, we just want to shift just a little bit there so that we can see the difference in the 2 layers. So I'm going to run my adhesive on the base of my white. Let's put that over there. And then when I adhere the blue layer, I'm going to go just slightly down. That makes sense there? Just ever so slightly down. Let's see if I flip that over, if that also makes sense that way. So you can see where they're just offset just a little teeny bit there. And then we're going to repeat that process with the second set. So again, I'm going to run my adhesive. At the base of my white, and then I'm adhering the blue layer on top, just slightly offsetting. So just slightly going a little bit lower, like so. So when we go to adhere these, we're only going to adhere the first one for now. And when I adhere it, I want to go, let's see. If I can get this tucked in a little bit, sure. All right, so when I go to adhere this down, I'm gonna go just slightly higher than our border strip here. Because if you look, our Donald Duck kind of looks like he's in between those two borders. So we're gonna adhere just one of them for now. And then we're gonna go ahead and put the rest of our die cuts together. And then at the very end, we'll add our last scallop border strip. So we're going to adhere one of them down again. See how we've left just a little teeny border there, just a little teeny gap between our yellow and the scallop layer there. Now the fun part. Now we have all of our die cuts to put together. Go ahead and start with our pool party here. All right, I'm going to pull out all of the pieces for our pool party. And this is where your markers are going to come in. I'm going to set this aside, make sure you're able to get a better view of that. All right, so typically here, I would come with my Quick Quotes inks, and I would give one of these, give all of these on one side, a quick once over with my chalking inks. But I wanted to do something a little different here to show you how versatile the Nuvo glitter markers are as well. So let's start by using the white as our base layer, and we're going to go ahead and adhere the black layer. Just like so. So we're going to adhere that black right in the middle of our white. And now, instead of accenting with the powder puff inks, we are going to accent with our markers. Now, you could go ahead and trace all the way around the letter. You could trace down one side, or I'm just going to give it just a little bit of a highlight. So for our P, I'm using our Athenian blue, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of an accent in just a couple locations here. So hopefully that picks that up there. You can see just a little bit of an accent there on the P. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue him down. But see, to me, you have a little bit of more control over exactly where that ink is going to go. Where, if you're using the chalking inks, it's going to give a little more of a feathered effect, and it's hard to get it in an exact location. Whereas the pen, you have a definite control over exactly where that's going to go. So the same thing with our O. I'm going to use our fired brick marker, and I am just going to give it a little bit of an accent here. See, there again, just a little bit of a highlight. It's doing a very similar purpose as our Quick Quotes inks. To me, it's just a lot easier and a lot less messy. All right, so next I'm going to go ahead and skip over and do our L. So with our L here, I'm going to try the Sweet Apricot. And give it just a little bit of a highlight there with our marker. So again, just giving it just a little touch of a highlight. And then adhering our L. All right, so now we have our O to go, and I wanted to do just something a little extra and whimsical to our O. So obviously you can tell that I've taken our O and I have turned it into a life preserver. So we have the 2 layers of the O that need to be adhered together. So we have our light yellow, that's our base, and then we're going to adhere the darker yellow as the top layer. All right. So we already have kind of the 2 layers, the 2 different colors with this particular O. Now, I wanted to go ahead and accent it, but I didn't want to totally cover that top layer. So what I have done is just taking my orange marker, and I'm just going to accent all around that center there. Again, think of trying to use your quick quotes inks and get just that little center location. Now, it's possible, but not near as easy as it is with our Nuvo markers. So now it looks like our O has been cut from 3 different shades of paper. Easy peasy, right? All right, so let's adhere our O. And then we're going to finish this off by adding our word party. December in Indiana, I'm always ready for a pool party. Get me away from the cold winter. Hopefully by now you have seen that we have added an in-person crop in Orlando in February because what Hoosier gal, which a Hoosier is someone from Indiana, who wouldn't want to go to Florida in the middle of our winter? So we are hosting an uber fun at the movies themed crop in Orlando in February. It's a must, I'm telling you. Nick and Lori and myself will be there, and we have so many fun things. I tell you, one of the best crops we have had was the one that we had in Orlando last October. We had people from Texas and from Illinois and from California. It's just so much fun. It's such a great atmosphere. It's definitely one you don't want to miss. If your loved ones are looking for a gift to give to you, what a great gift to give you the registration to that Orlando crop. If you think our virtual events are fun, wait till you spend a whole weekend with us live in the flesh. All right. So next here, I'm going to pull out the pieces for our life preserver. You notice I didn't swallow the frog first. My husband always says when there's something tedious that has to be done, do it first and get it out of the way. And I'm saving Donald to last. So next we're going to do our life preserver. So we have our orange layer. We're going to just adhere that directly in the center of our light blue here. And then our life preserver, of course, has those 4 white sections. So I'm going to start at the top and then go directly underneath for the next piece. And then we're going to go side to side. So we're basically adhering these at 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. All right, one last piece here. For our life preserver. All right, then we're going to set that aside. So next we have our Donald Duck. Now our Donald Duck does have quite a few pieces. So if you were with us for our Goofy page, if you remember, Goofy did have quite a few as well. But I think Donald has taken the cake. So there's quite a few pieces on our Donald die cut. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and do my accents first, and then I'm going to adhere it together all like our puzzle piece here. So we have our 2 orange feet, and I'm going to accent both of those. I'm using the crushed papaya. Really, any kind of orange is going to work to give that an accent. But I'm just going to go just on one side here, giving him that little bit of accent on each of his feet. We can hold it up so you can see that there. You can feel free to be creative in however you want to use that. The control with the marker makes it so much easier. If you ever wonder like what color of marker to use, really the best thing to do is just to try it on a scrap. So if it's a kit like this and you don't have a scrap of that exact same, just try it on the back to see if that's going to work for you. Don't forget as well, we have a Nuvo glitter marker chart on our website. It's downloadable. You have to purchase it, but it's a free purchase. And then we will email you the link to download that. So you can print out that Nuvo marker chart, and then beside it, you could color in that box, and that way you can see exactly what looks like, what colors are what when you go to use them. That's really a helpful chart. All right, for the red portion of his mouth, I did use that fired brick. Just kind of accenting in that tongue area. And then we have our yellow pieces. So we have our little legs and we have his beak. And I'm going to accent those with our golden ochre. Then we'll get ready to adhere. So we have our golden ochre marker. And I'm again just going to give some little accents here to our yellow pieces. Isn't it amazing how much shimmer comes out of these markers? The amount of shimmer that they pack into them is pretty phenomenal. And I especially love the shimmer marker on the shimmer paper. All right. So now we have our puzzle piece to put together here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start with his feet. That tends to be kind of my plan of attack, is to start at the bottom and outer edges, because we can exactly tell where those feet are going to go. All right. Now, his trunks are kind of all together, so it's like his entire swimsuit. So we need to do that next. Now, because if you notice, the arm here has one of the stripes of the top of his swimsuit there. So make sure we're doing the blue layer first. So don't go ahead and adhere the white, because that blue layer needs to go underneath that stripe. So we're going to go ahead and add our blue layer. So we've done our feet and then our blue layer. Get off some of the extra glue there. The air has caught itself into my Helmar and it's oozing it out. All right. And again, notice how we've cut a lot of these pieces with the shimmer collection. So don't forget when you're using your die cutting machine that it just doesn't work with the canvas collection. It's going to work with all 5 of the collections really, really nicely. So now we can kind of fill in the gaps down here now that we have his swimsuit intact. Can add his little legs. And we got one more here with the little bent knee. And then don't forget about his tail here. The little teeny tail poking out behind his suit. All right, we good? So we kind of got the lower half of his body all together now. So now we can go ahead and add his arms. All right, because as I was saying earlier, when you look, his hand is kind of connected there to the one stripe. So we want to make sure that blue layer is first, and then we can adhere our white layer on top. So we're going to go ahead and add his other arm. That's pinching his nose. Oops. All right, I think I'm just going to go ahead and add the top of his head and hope that this all comes together just as it's supposed to. That perfect little puzzle. All right, our yellow here. I actually find putting together all of these tiny little pieces a bit meditative. I love figuring out the puzzles in life. So I love figuring out how all this all goes together. Cute, isn't he? He's just so stinking adorable. He's like with those eyes, half shut. You can just see the excitement of going into that water in the pool. All right, it's got his. Now we need to add the white stripes from his bathing suit. And just one last piece here, and we're gonna call him done. All right. We did it. All right, you will notice that your final Donald Duck is going to look more like this version, which is just a tad different from the original version. Sometimes once we get the original version complete and we realize in mass production maybe some challenging cuts or that we're getting to its way too many pieces, that you'll notice that sometimes the final piece is a little different than what the sample is. It's usually because we've tweaked it a little to improve the cut and improve the use in the end. All right, let's put these side by side here. So now that we've done all of the tough parts, all we need to do here is go through and kind of layer and adhere all of the various pieces. So again, we want him to look like he's kind of jumping out of the water. So I'm just going to lay it and let's see how it all fits together here. We want our life preserver behind our Donald. Like so, and then we have our pool party. I'm just going to make sure everything all fits, and then I will go back and start gluing. All right. Looks good to me. Look good to you? This is my little cheat here. So now that I have to go back and I've figured out where it all goes, I kind of like place my tweezers or marker in that spot so that I can remember that that's the location it needs to get adhered. So we have our life preserver, which is going to go almost to the tippy top of our page. Then we have our Donald Duck. And he's in the center of that life preserver. Like so. And then we have our pool party. Now I didn't pop dot this. You could pop dot it. I just thought we had enough thickness on this page because of all the layers of paper here. So I just went ahead and adhered it flush to the page, but you would be welcome if you wanted that extra dimension to adhere the pool party using your pop dots. And then for a fun accent, we have these 3 stars, kind of bringing in the pattern here and introducing it here in this negative space. All right. And just one more here. All right, so now we just have our final scalloped border to adhere, and then we're all ready to go. All right, if it'll let me tuck it underneath, I'm going to add it underneath the top layer of our yellow. Now, if it doesn't work, it's okay. Ah, bingo. I was able to kind of tuck that underneath that top layer perfectly. Give yourself a pat on the back. This is such an adorable, fun page that makes you want to go on vacation. So we'll take a second. You go onto the website, you register for the Florida crop in February, especially if you're a Midwest gal like me, and we'll crop the weekend away, and then we'll go to Disney, and we'll find an inside pool. All right, we're going to put this aside, and then we're going to go ahead and start our right page and finish up this spread. All right, so let's wrap up the spread by starting page 2 of our 2-page spread. Now, a lot of these things that we've already done in the first page, we're going to repeat them again. So you should be a pro at this, right? This one should come together pretty easily. We just want to make sure that we have this continuous line that's going to go across the top of the spread, and that all of our photos are going to be there at the bottom. So again, we're going to repeat the borders, the scallops, to really give it kind of the same feel as the first page. So we're going to start with that really fun bubble paper as our background once again. So if you haven't done so, go ahead and cut off that barcode strip at the bottom. I always say if you really like the paper, don't throw away the barcode strip. Just take some adhesive and put it on the back of your page here. That way when you go back and maybe want to reorder a couple sheets, you have exactly what the name of that paper is. All right, unlike the first side of the page, we do have a pattern paper that's going to go at the top. So in your bag, you have that 12 by 12 sheet of starfish paper. You won't need the whole sheet of this, so you'll actually have half of it left over that you can use for another project. So we're giving you the full sheet, but know that you only need to use about half of it. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to cut our starfish pattern paper to 5 inches. 5 inches. And then we're going to take that 5-inch piece and we're going to cut it down again. So we want the final piece to be 5 by 11 and a half. 5 by 11 and a half. And we're going to adhere that at the top of our spread. So I'm going to run my adhesive along the back. Seeing the back of this page, I often pull inspiration from papers like this as well. So if you look at the back, and it kind of depends on how you cut yours, it could be a little different than what you're seeing here. But, you know, use those phrases and use those designs and recreate them yourself. Again, I love taking an idea that someone's already developed and kind of tweaking it and making it my own. And that way you don't have to totally reinvent the wheel. We're going to adhere that starfish paper. We're going to adhere at the top of the page, just leaving that little bit of border of our bubble paper showing all the way around. And now we're going to go ahead and add our fish scales paper, our light blue pattern paper. It is cut to 12 inches, but again, we need to cut that one down as well. So just like our first piece, we need this to be 11 and a half. 11 and a half. And then don't forget on your scallops or on your scales there, whichever way you have them, whichever direction you have them on the left page, we want to mimic that with our right page. So all of mine were going downward. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on this side of the page as well. Now, if you didn't catch that and you already have it adhered and they're going in 2 different directions, really will anybody know? Probably not. So don't sweat it. But if you can catch yourself in advance, just make sure that those are going in the same direction there. All right, remember that fun star border that we did on our first page? We're going to do it again. So I'm going to set this to the side. And I'm going to pull out the layers here. And it's the exact same border that we did on the very first one. So we're going to adhere them the exact same way as we did it on that first strip. So the first one, our base layer is that yellow glimmer piece. And then we're going to layer on top from there. So since our light blue still has a lot of surface area, I'm going to use my dry adhesive. Alrighty, and we're going to adhere that just in the center. Like so. So first the yellow, then the light blue. After the light blue, you remember the next one here? All right, we have our red. So we have the yellow, the light blue, and then the red. My surface area is getting a little thinner, so I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my liquid adhesive. I tend to only use liquid adhesive on tiny pieces because I think that liquid adhesive can tend to bubble surfaces if you use it in a really, really large area. That's just my personal preference. And those 2 layers should sandwich perfectly together there. Again, see how we can now see the yellow stars and the light blue stars peeking through that border. Then after our red, we have our green. And adding just little teeny dots of the liquid adhesive. Make sure that your strips are lining up with each other. You should be able to tell exactly if you have it going in the right direction. If it's not aligning with your stars, then you know you need to flip it and adhere it the opposite direction. See, it's fun. It's fun just like that as well, but I love how we keep adding another layer and adding another layer, and look how it dramatically changes every time we added a layer. All right, next we have our white. The name of this white paper, it's the Canvas collection from My Colors, and it's called Snowbound. And that's what I'm going to be in the next few weeks, knowing the state of Indiana. All right. One last layer to go. And again, we're kind of low on our surface area, as this is the layer that we're going to see every single color of star. I'm just going to just barely dot that with some liquid adhesive and add that top layer. There you go, we did it again. All right, now going back to our background here. And we're going to go ahead and add our star border layer. All right, now I have the sample laying right beside me, so I know exactly where that border strip is going to go. You don't have the exact sample in front of you, but what you have is your completed left page. So what I want you to do is I want you to put your left page that's already complete right beside you. And I want to make sure that the star border from the left page aligns with the star border on the right page. Again, we want the eye to be able to continuously flow from one side of the spread to the other. So even though you don't have the exact one, put your page that you've already completed and make sure that those star borders are perfectly aligned with each other. All right, for our next step here, we're going to go ahead and put our scalloped borders together. Again, we're mimicking the exact same thing we already did on our first page. So you should know exactly how these are going to go together. So we have our white layer here, and as that canvas side is pointed upward, I'm going to run my adhesive just along the base, not into the scallops, just along the base. And again, that's on the front side of that paper. And then when I adhere the blue, I'm just going to barely offset each of those. Just like that. And then we're going to do it all over again. So we've done this step 4 times now. All right. Again, running my adhesive on the top side of my white. And then I'm going to lay my blue layer on top, just slightly offset from each other. All right. So now we have our 2 scallop borders that are all ready to go. Now, first thing I want to do though, is if you look at the design on this page, our teal circles here, our really light teal shimmer circles, actually go underneath our scallop border. So we obviously we have to layer and adhere in that certain order, because our scallops, our big circles are going to go first, and then our scallop borders on top of that. So we just want to make sure when we adhere both of these pieces that we have room for our diving Donald there on the left side. I'm just going to pull out his base layer. So we know he's going to go about like that. So we think our circles will be just fine about like that. So again, I'm kind of all using this all as my guide. So I'm going to go ahead and remove him. And then I'm going to go ahead and adhere those 2 circle layers. When you go to adhere these, they are pretty close to the top of our white paper. And then one more here. All right, so now that our 2 circles are done, and they're really just meant for accents, I kind of wanted, when I went to adhere my my splash die cuts, they really got lost in this starfish pattern paper. So I wanted something a little solid that would really help make those stand out and pop off from the page. And I just didn't want to randomly add kind of a square of solid color paper there for it to be, my doggie's begging to get up here. Hi, everybody. Hi. All right, so I wanted to still kind of mimic the bubbles there. So we went with that circular shape. Yes, I see you. I see you. So we went with that circular shape to kind of follow the bubbles and mimic that overall circular feel of this page here. So now that we have those 2 circles adhered, we're going to see if Hercules is going to let us continue on with this page. But after these are both adhered, we want to go ahead and adhere that scallop border. Now, again, we want to make sure that it all aligns with the page that we've already created. So make sure that you're laying your first page here on the left. And then when we go to adhere those 2 scallop borders, you want to make sure that they align. Again, we want our eye to continuously flow from one side of the page to the next. So I'm going to run my adhesive on the scalloped border here. And we're adhering that one. And when I did this for the first page, remember I left that little bit of gap there. So since I left that little bit of gap, I'm going to go ahead and do it here. And then for our second one, remember I was able to kind of tuck that in to the top of our star border. So we're going to see if we're able to do that again. It's a little harder to do when you have a little dog in your lap. All right. There we go. All right, fun, isn't it? All right, one thing I did forget is if you remember when we finished our first star border here, we had the enamel dots that we put in the side, in the center of each of those stars. So you do, again, we're going to mimic that exact same thing. So in your packet, you have the white enamel dots. And again, yours could be different sizes. It's okay. And it's okay if they're different sizes from the other side. Air bubbles are different sizes, right? But we're going to adhere them just in the 3 center ones. Just like so. All right, so now all we have left is putting together our die cuts. And as we know, this is usually the most time-consuming step of all. So in our packet, we're going to start with our aqueduct. So we have our base layer, our black layer of our aqueduct, and then we're going to adhere all of our green layers first. So in your packet, pull out all of those little tiny letters. They should be the only green pieces in your baggie. Our Donald Duck has an incredible amount of pieces. So I'm going to leave them in the bag in hopes of keeping them all together. All right, let's see if that's all of them there. So if you've been on a Disney cruise before, I have totally mimicked their Aqueduct logo and created it in die cut form. But I was totally inspired by the 2 shades of letters. So what you could do to recreate this on your own, so just use a standard alphabet that comes with any die cutting kind of system, cut it out twice, and then cut the top layer in half and only use half of it. I really love just, again, the little visual interest and difference that it uses when we see those 2 different layers of colors. So let's go ahead now and adhere our green layer. We have that pretty thick black border. I really wanted to make sure that our title stood out on our page. And there is quite a bit going on between the starfish pattern paper at the top and our star border and our scalloped wave border. So I went just a little thicker on the black background, the black mat of our title. Again, just to kind of give it a little more emphasis. Now, if you are using these for non-Disney photos, non-Disney cruise photos, it obviously still works to say Aqueduct. But if you didn't know, Aqueduct is the water slide on one of the Disney cruise ships. All right, and now is the real test of your patience here. So in your bag, we have all of the little pieces of the white that goes at the bottom of the letters. Now, it's hard to tell that they're letters because we're only seeing the bottom half. We also have all of the white pieces of Donald still stuck in that bag. So sometimes it's just kind of trial and error, which is going to fit where. All right. So I'm going to start just pulling out what pieces I think are going to work. And just like putting together our puzzle, I'm going to lay it all out. And then we'll start putting it all together. All right. So in here we should have a few more letters. This looks like our A. This is the base of our K. Yep, sure is. So it looks like we need the base of our D. And there it is. It's pretty amazing when you think about it, that all of these tiny pieces, how many pieces get cut, and then how many pieces, how many hands handle it to put it inside of a baggie, and then more hands ship it out to you, and then your hands are opening up the baggie with all these tiny pieces, and oftentimes, it's amazing that they're all still there, right? All right, so we are good to go. All of our pieces are accounted for. You could as well take a really light green or a yellow Quick Quotes powder puff and ink just the top of all of these, and then you would really have that ombre effect. You would have like 3 shades. So it would look like 3 different pieces of paper were cut versus 2. So that's something that's fun to you if you haven't already adhered them down. just take maybe like a lemon chiffon or a mint chip, something like that, and ink just the very top of your white layers. So then it would look like 3 different shades. All right, just a couple more layers here. All right, and one more to go, and then we can set this aside. And then we're gonna go to our water droplets. Oops. All right, so there is our title. I'm just gonna set that aside there and go to our water droplets. So you should have 3 that are navy blue. And then you should have 3 that are that medium shade of teal. This color is actually called Seafoam. It's one that I tend to use a lot. All right, we are going to use our markers to give this a little bit of an accent, exactly how we did the pool party title on the first page. I'm going to go ahead and glue these layers together. But just so you know, we're going to use the Athenian blue. And to give those some accents. So we have the teal going on top of the black layer there. And then we have our tiny little water droplets. I wish you could see Hercules now. He is over in the corner of the room and he's pouting. He has his head buried and he's pouting because I'm not giving him any attention. My youngest child, I thought was 16, but I think my youngest child is my 4-year-old little dog. All right, so once we have the layers of our splashes together, then I'm going to go ahead and take my Athenian blue, and we're just going to give it just a fun little accent here. I'm just going to go along the side. Look at that pop of shimmer. So much shimmer in these markers. I love it. All right. Bingo. Now our captain's wheel and our star. We're not going to do anything to those, but I'm just going to go ahead and put them there so they're all ready to go. And now we have our Donald Duck here. So the same thing that we did the first time, where I'm going to go ahead and put all of the accents on all of our layers, and then we'll go back and kind of glue together all of those little puzzle pieces. So I'm going to pull out the yellow. And on the yellow, we're going to use our golden ochre. All right. So this here is just the stripe of his pants. So I'm going to take my golden ochre marker and go right down the center, giving that highlight stripe there. All right. All right, so for the rest of our little pieces, sometimes they're a little hard to tell what they are until you see them kind of in their final spot. But if you could either watch me or maybe look at the handout to kind of give you a a little guide of what all these little pieces are. Like this piece here is his foot. So I'm just again going to accent the side there of his foot. You could really accent these however you really want to. I'm just going to kind of give you a guide. That way you can just totally scrap lift me if that's the easiest thing to do. With the shimmer paper, you will notice when I do the shimmer paper, I kind of go over that same area a few times. Just like when we're using our Quick Quotes powder puff inks on the shimmer paper, how it really picks up that ink and really absorbs it really quickly. It's the same thing with the marker. So I tend to kind of over exaggerate. So I go over it several times to really make sure that that color pops. So there was his little tiny leg. And then we have his beak. And his beak I'm going to highlight in a couple different places here. You could also use like a really light orange. I wouldn't go too dark on the orange. But if you wanted a kind of a more of a stark contrast, more of an accent, you could use that lighter orange instead of the golden ochre. But if you can tell that golden ochre really picks up quite well on that yellow. All right, so now we're ready to start adhering our layers. So we're going to start with the biggest piece here. Don't you love how the progression of Donald Duck here? So in the first page, we have him where he's holding his nose, getting ready to jump in, just like he's a little kid again, afraid the water is going to get up his nose when he jumps into the pool. And now he's like calm, cool, and collect, and he's just diving right on in. I just find that just a fun little transition there. Yes, I know it's quirky. So with our hands, we should be able to tell exactly how they're going to line up. Now, tricky here. So if you look at his hands, see how one of his fingers isn't attached. So in your baggie, you have a little tiny Donald Duck finger. Again, you could probably, it's one of those pieces that's in there and it's hard to even know what it's going to be used for. It's just a really small little, see what I mean? Super tiny here. Maybe if I hold it that way. It's just this little sliver of almost nothing, and that is his finger. That's going to go right there. That could be one of those pieces that, you find a week later on the floor, or the next time you put the shirt on that you're currently wearing and you see it like stuck to an elbow. It's such a tiny little spot there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and fill in his face. We're going to add his beak. And then we could start adding the white layers of his face. All right, his eyes are obviously closed here, but his eyes are separate little pieces. So you have kind of like this eyebrow here. And then we have to go back and add the eyelids. Lots of little tiny pieces. If you wanted, you could give your white a little hint of some gray or some light blue accents if you wanted to give a little dimension or highlight to those pieces. I really liked how just the stark white, just that contrast looked. All right, then we have the other little tiny eyelid. Now, they look almost identical, that eyelid and his finger. So if it's not fitting exactly right, you could have mixed the two around because they are so, so similar. Who's gonna know, right? Who's gonna know? All right, so now we're ready for some swim trunks. His swim trunks are in 2 separate pieces. Actually, they're in 3 separate pieces. So I'm gonna lay that all out to make sure I have them in their right position. One more piece out of our baggie. All right, then that yellow stripe is gonna go just nestle in between those 2 layers. This would be super fun too if you took your Nuvo markers. I'm just gonna quickly make sure I have that in the right spot. Yes, we do. All right, if you want to take your Nuvo glitter markers and like put a funky floral pattern on his swim trunks for this one, you could just throw polka dots. You could give him some chevrons. You could add all kinds of fun patterns on the solid color by using those Nuvo glitter markers. Also, don't forget, if you do fun stuff like that, send me a photo. I absolutely love to see it. Please don't ever start your post with, "I'm sorry to bother you." Really, it's never a bother, ever. You are why I'm here, why I have a business, and why I love my job. So I love to see your final projects. I love to see it with photos. I love to see when you have done something totally different from what I have suggested. And I think I find that so cool because that's what I do as well. I love to take other designers' thoughts, their designs, and tweak them. It's how we find inspiration in life, right? If you did watch that Disney Plus program, the Pixar, and to the Deanna, the artist, I love how she finds inspiration all around her. You know, if she's stumped for ideas, she takes a walk and becomes inspired by nature. I love to hear what inspires other people. All right. How are we doing? We're almost done with our little Donald Duck here. Hopefully you got all of his pieces to all line up as they should. All right, did you do it? Now the easy part. Now we just get to adhere all of these and we get to finish out our page. All right, so I'm going to pull my background sheet out again. Let's move this up just a little bit, make room for our page. All right, now we kind of have like predetermined that most of our photos are going to go along the bottom of the page. So if you notice, I haven't cut any photo mats, but that way you could put as many photos at the bottom as work for you. Maybe you need to cut them smaller, maybe you need them horizontal, but we haven't cut any photo mats, but you should have plenty of white cardstock to be able to do that so that they perfectly fit your photos. But the first thing I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with our Donald Duck. Now, if you are going to use the 3D pop dots, so I'm going to lay him here in his position. Now, it's pretty thick right here with that star border, because if you remember, we have all of those layers of cardstock. So we wouldn't really want to put our foam so that it's even thicker with our Donald. So if you are using the 3D foam, I would lay him on there, and then on the back side, add your foam from here down and add your foam from here up. So where his body is touching our star border, I wouldn't add an extra even layer of dimension, because then we're going to get pretty chunky. Now, if you're putting this in a frame, in a shadow box, and going to put it on the wall, go for it. Absolutely. So you would put a layer of 3D foam in that section here, and then you will need to layer 2 sets of foam behind the upper portion here and the lower portion of his bodies. That way it would kind of lay equal, lay flat, and kind of balance that all out. I'm going to go ahead and I am just going to run my adhesive just like this. Along the side of our page. All right, here's my other little quirky Andrea thing. Do you notice how his body is curved and it meets the circle pattern of our light teal shimmer circle there? Again, it's the little things that probably most people aren't going to realize is happening, but that makes our eye really flow, and then it's going to go back to our title. So your eye is going to go whoop, then back right to our title here. Again, if you rearrange this a little so that it fits your photos differently, it's perfectly okay. I always love to give you, though, the little insight of why I have things in the position that I do. All right, so we have our aqueduct here. And again, if you want to use the 3D foam, go for it. I am just going to go ahead and adhere it just like this. Just flat there. All right, so for our next piece here, I have our captain's wheel. So if you're doing like a backyard swimming pool, it's okay to put it, but you might want to change that with something else, maybe a beach ball, or something that would be more pool related. But I knew I needed something in that area, and I was trying to think, what kind of little die cut would work with the theme of this page. So those papers that I was showing you earlier, this is another one of those papers from that collection. Fun, right? Again, how easy would this be to recreate these simple shapes and totally cut and create your own pattern paper that's going to be more dimensional and not just flat. But I was kind of looking around like, what could I use? Is there something here that could inspire me? And I loved that little captain's wheel that popped up ever so often. So I thought, let's use a captain's wheel. So again, just a little insight on how in the world my mind works there. So we're going to take our captain's wheel, and I am going to just barely tuck it under the top there of our aqueduct. All right, we're almost finished here. So we have our little water droplets, and it looks like Donald has completed his dive. And as he completes that dive, we have that splash of water that comes up from the pool. So our little water droplets here. It's also a great way to add flow to your page. The curvature and those die cuts really help mimic the flow of the water. All right, one last thing here. So we do have a yellow star. The sole purpose is because I really wanted to tie in the 2 pages. So we had the stars from the left page. I wanted to make sure we used at least 1 star on this page. And the whole purpose is just so It all looks continuous. It looks like they were totally meant to be together. All right, we've done it. Kudos on our second Disney page of the day. So we still have 2 more to go. We're going to do the orange bird and the up spread. And again, we're going to give you little tidbits on how to continue finding inspiration for all of your Disney pages. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you again in a few little minutes.